Welcome to today's podcast. If you like these and you've been enjoying them up to now, please share them. Leave a comment on Spotify, that'd be great. Today I'm speaking to John Brownlee-Baker. John joined the Royal Artillery as a boy soldier aged 15 in 1958 and reached the rank of RSM and became the Garrison Sergeant Major at Larkhill before emigrating to Canada and actually joining the Canadian Reserve Forces, ending up as a Lieutenant Colonel. John served in Aden during the 1960s, serving with the J City Reserve Battery. Today John tells us about why he joined the army, what his boy service was like, and discusses Aden along with other stories. I hope you enjoy this one. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm going to be talking to John Brownlee-Baker. Hi John, welcome to the podcast. Could you just take us over why you joined the military and what your training was like?
I can honestly say Aden and Hong Kong, both with third, were the best times of my life. I joined the army. My stepfather, we didn't see eye to eye. He beat me. Not much, but it was enough to annoy me. So my mum, I was a big lad in Midlands, and I joined the army at 15. I got two half-sisters. One was born when my mum married my father. The other one was born just before I joined the army. She was born in October, and I'm not that, well, we're close, but we're not. My older sister, we're very close. I joined the army, boy service, going nowhere, went to Towin, to the Outward Bound School, and got a B grade in, and took off from there. Came back, boy Lance Bombardier, junior BA Bombardier, junior sergeant, junior BSM, graduated in the summer of 60 as junior RSM, went to Fox Troop, got the best field gun prize, and it's really funny, I went to 3RHA, I was boy RSM, and 3RHA were doing a thing at the Three Counties Show in the Midlands. And I went there, and of course, hanging up my jacket with the RSM's wings on, or the RSM rank on, and everybody's saying, well, good God, we got RSM here now. And one of the sergeants there, George Greenan and Jock Riddick, were both J Battery, and I led myself to J. And in fact, my boy BSM in boy service, Jim Williams, was going to third as RSM. So, of course, that was a natural progression. And at 18, going to Kenya in 61, that was fabulous. Went there. We were looking after Aden then. There was no permanent regimental. 19 Regiment took over from us. They were the first full-time regiment there. C Battery went the year before, so C were there for 4 years. Some of them joined J, and when we went to Aden, we were the last. Let's start this again. C Battery went in 60 to 61, then D Battery went for 4 months, J went for 4 months, D went for 12 months, and then J went for 12 months after the end. And I'm pretty sure there was only a couple of us maybe did the whole time in Aden with J. The first time we went to Attack, which was 25 pounders, that was a 4-month tour. And then D Battery took the 105, the Pacow, the spaghetti gun. We took over from D. I went to to Attack again, went to Bayhan, went from Bayhan up to the Wadi Ain, I think it was, up on the Yemen border, and we were fighting up there. Then we went practice camp, and we went to Dala, and that was Dala when it really started. Christmas Day, in fact, in Dala, we got shelled from the FNG fort across the Wadi from us, and Mike Banks was the RSM, the OC of the Marines. And there was us, the Marines, and an FRA battalion in Dala. That was pretty hot to Christmas. In fact, 4 tanks were the armoured regiment there at the time. They had armoured cars, 2 corporals, Casey and Hawks. myself, and the other number one was Ron Skoltok. We were all bombardiers, and that was we moved to Wadi Rabwa in the New Year of '61. We went down New Year's Eve, '61. We went to the Radfan and we stayed there then for the whole time. In fact, we had 13 guns. One thing on this book, on the story, Andrew, Ron Mountford, who was a GPO at the time, finished up a brigadier. He may be dead now. I'm not sure. He wrote a book called J Battery in Aden, and I've got it. I've got a couple of copies in Canada still with me. I can send them to you. That gives a big picture. I didn't realize, people in the war don't realize the war's going on in other parts of the country. Yeah. And that's a very good book. It deals with the officers mainly. It's written by Ron Mountford, Tim Thompson, who was air troop commander at the time. We were 3 sections, one in Attack, one in Makiras, and one in Dala. Ron Stagg, Major Stagg, can't remember his first name, was the BC, and he organised a camp in Attack, a regimental camp, and that's when we changed. We went from Bayhan to Dala, and I was due to go back to Kenya on promotion, and Pat Lewis, who was the number one in Dala, in Makiras, got medevaced, and instead of going to Kenya, I went to Makiras as a sergeant. Then the section from Makiras was moved to Dala. There were 6 guns in Dala, and I think 3 in Bayham. We were a 9-gun battery, and it was remarkable. The infantry had 45 Commando, 3 Para, Royal Scots, the KOSB, and they were rotating, but we couldn't rotate because we'd only got a regiment there. So, in fact, I got really well in with the Royal Marines. Jock McGilvery was the BSM at the time, and he's dead now. I know Jock died about a year and a half ago. Where am I going on this? Jock was the BSM, and then we had a BSM W02 Ted Cross posted in. He was senior to Mac, so Mac came up country, and he was pretty good. He was darn good as a GPO. I mean, we had 6 OPs, I think. Tara sergeants were OPs. We had a Lance Bombardier running the command post in Tamir. We were moved up the Wadi. We were mainly on tabletop, which was a flat mountain. It was pretty interesting. It was very interesting, in fact. We were there. We camel packed up Pakau, not very successfully. We put it under the Wessex. We put it under the Belvedere. The Navy, in fact, the Navy pilots for Royal Marine and Royal Navy from Kamaxer in Aden, the RAF wouldn't. It was a strange setup. We were supporting the FRA and the Arab Army, and we weren't picking up secondment rates. And the British government at the time, tight as hell, said, no, you can't get the secondment rates because we control you. You're on loan to the FRA. It was really a strange setup. We were supporting the FRA, but we couldn't get secondment rates. And then that started in the new year, 61. About April, I think it changed to a British operation when the British took over from the Arabs. It's okay, it's cars going past on the highway. It sounds like airplanes, but it's not. What else can I say? It was a lot of fun. We had no electricity, obviously. Everything was the fridge. Oh, that was it. The fresh meat used to come up in solar packs, and the water was, of course, bloody, but it was cold, and we used to drink it. It was it was a strange war. The war in Vietnam was obviously going on at that time, or just starting. Um, we saw one news agent the whole time we were there. The SAS came in. They lost two people. We fired. I mean, we were firing. It was a lot of fun. It was just fun. I knew the Arabs would never attack England. That, I mean, it was crazy to think now. But watch the soldiers in Afghanistan. They're all dressed up. We were in shorts, ammunition belt, desert boots, and the boonie hat, and that was us. Um, I I don't know. It was strange. We were away on our own. They were never going to bomb England. My mum was safe. It was a strange war. It was a really, really strange war.
There seemed to be a lack of interest from the British government about it as well. I mean, they were planning on leaving Aden, so it was like, why were we there? Why were we actually there trying to control the protectorate when the plan was to leave anyway?
I think it was with the experience of old age, and I see the world now. I think we had a lot of people in the government then. Winston Churchill was dead. Macmillan took over from him. I think it was Macmillan. Yeah, Macmillan. They were veterans from the Second War or the First War. I think now we're seeing. I think there's going to be another war. I think there's going to be another war in the Middle East for sure. Politicians now, I think Northern Ireland started for Britain. We were allowed 10 rounds of ammunition and fighting an armed force. Everything's political now. It wasn't political then. It was a different kind of war. I mean, 67 was the only year of the last century the British soldier wasn't killed somewhere on active service. We stopped dying in Aden. We hadn't started dying in Northern Ireland. I think politicians now, I mean, you can say this, I'm 81 and dying. I don't care. I think politicians now have lost the will to win. They've lost the will to fight. I think politicians now they don't see the world the way we saw it. I'm 81, I was born in the war. My aunt was in the Air Force. My mum's sister was in the Air Force. She couldn't go in the Air Force, or she couldn't join the armed forces because of me. No, it was a strange world. It was a good world. It was a good world. I used to argue with my grandfather. My grandfather was in the First War. He was in the RP in the Second, and we used to argue about, Granddad, why do you want to bring back the whip and the birch? And now I'm 81, older than my grandfather was when he died, and I'm saying, why don't we bring back the birch? I don't care anymore. I think the world is heading towards a big disaster. I really do.
It is. It's a very different world, even from when. I mean, I'm 55. I joined the army in 1985, and it's a very different outlook on life now as to what it was then. I was talking. I talked to my brother. I'd done a podcast with my brother, and he joined in the 70s, very late 70s, in the engineers, and even like discussing things with him, how different, like say, like guys going into training now, what it was like when we joined. I'd imagine if you'd have looked at our training, when I went to junior leaders as well at Bramco, if you'd have looked at my version of junior leaders to what yours was, it'd have been totally different as well. You'd have been thinking, probably looking at us going, "Oh, it was much harder for us," type of thing. Have you got any great memories from like your basic training and junior leaders and stuff?
Junior leaders, yes. Junior leaders made me. It really did. I joined the army at 15. I mean, I hadn't been, well, I used to cycle and play on the moor and hills, and, I was fit. But I had no motivation. And the Army Outward Bound course motivated me. That was when I think now, why did I get a B grade in? And B grade ins at the Outward Bound school were very minimal. You say my rank took off as soon as I came back. It was different then. We wore uniforms were World War One. The high neck button up, leather belts. it made me. Sergeants were all, most of them were wartime. I look back on my life and I think what people influenced me. And my one guy in boy service was the troop sergeant, Paddy, what's his name? Bird. Bird was a drill sergeant, and he was very fair, very hard. And he made me, I looked at myself and thought, well, I want to be a sergeant. That was the big thing. And I wanted to be on the guns. That was the other thing. And they made me a Tara. And a Tara, then it was an RT board and, the range finder. And it was crazy. And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I stayed on the guns my whole service. Yeah. I fought like crazy to stay a gunner. I joined the gunners, and I wanted to stay a gunner. That was the big thing for me, and I did. I think now perhaps I'd have gone to gunnery staff, but I think no. The guns are the place to be. If you join the artillery, the guns are the only place to be.
It's surprising how many people have actually said that. Yeah, a lot of people do say that, and the way the career goes in the military now is, though, unfortunately, you can't. If you're going to progress, you have to leave the guns. Or, I mean, I know guys who've worked in DOPs all their career, and they didn't want to go anywhere near the gun line. But at some point, you have to be a crossover. You have to do it. I started off on the guns myself, but I always wanted to be a signaller, and I ended up being a signaller later on. And then, but I was also a clerk at one point as well. Not a very good one, as I've mentioned in my podcast. I kind of got sacked and put to the guns as a punishment. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me in the army, to go on the guns. So after Aden, where did you go after that?
Well, Aden, we went to, basically the 60s. I was in Britain for maximum 12 months. We went back from Aden, we went on disembarkation leave. Then that was probably finished that in November, went back to Netheravon. We went to Germany then in the spring of 64. Yeah, we were in Germany then from 64 to 70. Went back to Colchester, 3 years in Colchester, which we did. I did 5 tours in Northern Ireland, 5 or 6. 3, 4 months, and 2 or 3 months. I can't remember now. 3 in Londonderry, 2 in Belfast, 1 in Armagh, and that was in 3 years. Then we went to Hong Kong, and then I left the battery in Hong Kong and went to 19 Regiment as RSM, and that really finished me in the British Army. Tony Hunter Choate took over the battery in Northern Ireland, took us to Hong Kong. Tony had a reputation. He'd come from, where did he come from? He'd come from Malayas, I think. He was a Foreign Legion sergeant. He joined the Foreign Legion and he had a reputation. And we had a good battery. We had a great battery. We both thought along the same lines. In fact, it was really funny. 3RHA had 3 gun batteries. It was Shiny C, Gungy D, and Grotty J. That was the way it was. We were always the Gungy ones. We were the senior battery, but we'd been Madras Horse Artillery, so it wasn't in the British order of battle. We weren't senior. We were founded before the other two. People argue with me, but I know the battery history. But we were very, very lucky. They practice camp in Colchester. We did a practice camp there when Tony Stagg was the CO. Yes.
So Northern Ireland then in the 70s. I mean, I didn't serve over there until my first tour of Ireland was like 80, 87. Doing a maze tour. I'd imagine in the 70s it was completely different. I know I've spoken to guys who served in Ireland around that time, and they just said it was hectic. It was things changed all the time. When some of the guys went over initially, they were welcome. people were making him cups of tea, biscuits in the street and stuff like that. And then it just like kind of changed almost overnight from a cup of tea to the ladies banging the bin lids in the street and stuff like that. Can you tell us
Yeah,
what the service was like in Ireland during?
yeah, it was. And we went to, yeah, for me, probably having Tony Hunter Choate as my BC, and then the CO I had in 19 Regiment. He was the only guy in the regiment. He was from the King's Troop with no names, no pack drill. Um, the only guy in the regiment with 2 years seniority who didn't have a Northern Ireland medal, at least a Northern Ireland medal. I can see I think the career people were on about putting me in charge of him. But I was young. I made mistakes. Yes, I did. But I was a soldier and he wasn't. So, and I was single. Then the guy that took over from me, Paddy MacDonald, was from 7RHA. He was going out. He was single. So that finished us. And I came to Canada. Met my wife, got married, came to Canada. I had a career in the Canadian Forces as a reservist.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I had a career. I joined in Vancouver, obviously. I got a job in Ontario, so I transferred, and the CO in Ontario said, I don't want warrant officers, I got enough warrant officers, I want to make you an officer. So I went through the second career in the Canadian Forces as an officer, and got commissioned to captain, went to major, went to CO, finished up as honorary colonel, which, 43 years, I guess, of uniform, I guess I was designed to be a gunner. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every single minute of it. There were high points, there were low points. Yeah.
Can we go back to, you say you served in Hong Kong?
Yes.
Could you just describe what the role over there was? Because a lot of people who are younger won't understand. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about Aden was it's like a forgotten war. People know about Ireland and stuff like that, but I don't think people realise that we actually had a military role in Hong Kong. We were there for a reason. Could you just explain about that, please?
I think we were there, basically. That's the thing. We're there to stop the Chinese taking over, but the Chinese had no ambition to take over because everything was going into China through Hong Kong. We had the 5.5s. That was the last practice camp at Colchester. The gunnery staff said, the gunnery staff were given the job of which battery would get the 5.5s. And I think we were streets ahead of everybody else. I say that quite categorically. We got the 5.5s. And our job, as far as I can see, we did practice camps around the island. We were hard to move, 5.5 as opposed to the other two batteries had the spaghetti gun. We won the 1 year I was there, 73. We won the best gun competition with the 5.5s. I look at Jay. I got promoted when I was in Germany, and I went to Sea Battery. And life was so different then. In J, I say we were Gunji J. That was us. We were Gunji J. I went to Sea Battery, shiny sea, and everything was polished. And it was, little things like the Abbott had a window washer for the driver's periscope. Sea Battery, shiny. It was brass. Sea Battery painted the paint off. J Battery painted it. D were it was something different about J. Something just to battle honour, the fact that we were a junior battery, the fact we'd been in Madras Horse Artillery. There was something different about J, I think. And in fact, I went back to J. In fact, one of my numbers ones in Sea Battery, Les Dare, was promoted. And Les was being posted to J. And I thought, solid, I'll try the RSM. I went to see the RSM, Stan Tullett, great RSM, great man, first class. And I said, sir, Sergeant Major Dare is being promoted, doesn't want to go to J, I'd like to go back to J. He went to see the CO, CO got the 2 BCs in, I went back to J as a TSM. And Pat Lewis we were good friends then. I don't know if Pat's still alive, I don't know. I know he was at Jock McGilver's funeral, but whether he's alive now, we've lost touch. The only guy I'm in touch with, apart from gunners from my era, is Danny Webb, Danny finished up his BSM of D Battery. You've been you've been a troop sergeant major in C. He and I were A and B troop with Tom Simpson, who was the BSM. Another ex-boy who was on the Goshen list about 4 or 5 removed from me. Yeah, we had a good battery, but it was so different to Jay. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, and we got. I mean, there's good people. I mean, the regimental reunion. What's his name? The guy that's just handed over. I forget now. What's his name? He was a number Lodge.
Yeah.
He was a gunner in C battery. When I left. Yeah, it was. I went to Libya with C, which was fun. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I enjoyed my time in 3RHA for sure.
Can you compare your service with the Canadian forces as with the British forces? Was it similar?
No. Canada has good soldiers. Canada's armed forces are great. I look at Canada and Australia, 2 countries similar size. Australia on their own in the south of the world. Australia is far better than Canada. Canada relies too much on the United States. Yeah. Far too much on the United States. Trudeau, the father, that's another story. He took the Canadians from the British to the Americans, took them down south. I think that was a mistake. In fact, when we got to Germany, the Canadian battery, the Canadian regiment, 1 RCHA, was in Zost and Hemer, and I was a sergeant. I'd been in the army, 6 years? I was a sergeant. They had bombardiers who were been in Korea. They had depth. They had a defense minister converted them into one force, and they all wore green. Well, can you imagine sailors going on warships in green? They were laughed at. Nothing wrong with the Canadian soldier. Nothing at all. He's a great guy. But the government has screwed the Canadian forces up. And forces, same in NATO now, they're being underpaid. I mean, Kipling wrote poems about the army, the British army at the time. Tommy this and Tommy that and Tommy wait outside. It's one of those things that they will always be screwed. Unless it comes to action, and I think, a war is on the books. But Canada now it seems to be, we went through a good spell when we were in Afghanistan, but again, the politicians don't want to put bodies on the line. Well, you'll never win a guerrilla war with the Air Force. I mean, the only way you'll do it is by putting people on the ground and putting people into places where people shouldn't be. That way you'll ignore you'll stop killing the innocents. But, what am I? I'm just a little old soldier living at the end of his life. And that's what I think is going to happen.
I mean, I think the future warfare is changing in the way it's going to be, because you watch footage and stuff like that coming from Ukraine. I wouldn't say it's the technical side of stuff like that now, but with drones and missiles, it's like putting normal artillery. Do you need it? With the drones and missiles, long range? I know the third now they've just changed to MLRS, and with the guided missiles that they've got and stuff like that. I left the third in 2006 and went to 39 to get a post into the UK. And I didn't really know about MLRS and stuff like that, and the launches and the way the missiles were, stuff like that. And it was a big eye opener for me to see that. And then when they were out in Afghanistan using the guided missiles with a 70k range and accuracy down to 18 inches and stuff like that, it was like, wow, it's amazing, really. And I think that's the future, and that's where the money should be poured into. And maybe it's not. Let's not think about normal artillery anymore. Guns 155 and 105. There'll always be a place for them, and you'll need them. But I think the future of the artillery should be looking at missiles and drones and stuff like that. What do you think on that?
I think the artillery worldwide is losing its touch because we're going to more and more and more into technical stuff. Let's face it, artillery is basically simple. It's the Mark 1 eyeball. Now we're getting more and more electronics, and if the Chinese are getting really good at this, they're bringing in more and more anti-electronic stuff. We're buying more and more from China because it's cheap. We're giving them the blueprints to all the stuff we've got. I don't know. It's changing the concept, and I think we're going to be the biggest loser in this, in the next war. It's all right to change it. Stop killing civilians. We'll stop killing civilians by the time you put people on the ground, and that's what the Israelis are trying to do now in Gaza. But they're still killing people, because the bad guys have got. We're too tied in by being nice guys. We're fighting an enemy, and since World War II, Britain has fought. We were fighting in Palestine, we were fighting in Aden, we were fighting in Malaya, we were fighting in Oman, we were fighting in Ireland, we were fighting in Afghanistan, in Iraq. We weren't fighting a regular army, we were fighting a guerrilla warfare which weren't bound by the same rules and regulations that the rest of the army was dealing with. Northern Ireland, 10 rounds, that was all you had. Well, sadly, as a troop sergeant major, I had my 50 rounds of ammunition I kept. If I sent guys out on patrol that they needed more than 10 rounds, I give them they get a full magazine. I'm sorry, that's the way it was. Everything has to go back through now. I mean, you read books on Afghanistan, the Americans, the president has to make a decision on whether to use ammunition or not. And that is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, even when I was serving, I spoke to people who were doing certain jobs over there, and when they were arresting people, it had to be sanctioned by Parliament, so it had to go all the way back up the chain.
Yeah.
And your hands are tied in certain things. I mean, I know in other ways it covers people. I mean, some of the inquiries from Iraq and Northern Ireland and Afghanistan about the way people were treated and stuff, and it kind of covers that. You've got to be able to have some free reign. You've got to be able to say this, that, and act what you see on the ground.
Yeah, it is. And where was I going? I was thinking of something then when you were talking. I forget what it was now.
So how did your military service have a bearing on your life after you left the army?
Oh, it's still my life. It's still my life. I've forgotten my civilian jobs in Canada. I think back on my service. All my Facebook friends are mainly military. I'm a soldier. I'll be a soldier till I die. I find that I'm writing myself off. I shut myself off from the civilian world. They don't speak the same language as me. They don't understand where I'm coming from. They're worried about the day-to-day stuff. Nobody leaves the world anymore. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's something I've done from the time I was, the time I joined the army. The world has always been my oyster.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. I mean,
it always will be.
I know what you're saying. I mean, when I left the army 11 years ago, sorry, I found it quite hard to integrate into civilian life, basically, if you know what I mean.
My first job in the real world was I was industrial engineer. I became an industrial engineer, and I was at Lark Hill. That was the other thing. I finished up with 19 Regiment, and I still got time I won my second tour, and as RSM. And I said to the career people, Bob Smales was the CEO in charge of the career for WOs. And he said, where do you want to go? I've been to the Hebrides, and I thought that would be a great place. The Hebrides, the range up there. I said, I'd like to be range officer at the Hebrides. So we took the blowpipe. We had blowpipe in 19 Regiment at the time. Again, the AMF. And I stayed in Lark Hill. I mean, I got the job of Garrison Sergeant Major in Lark Hill, finished. I mean, in charge of those play schools and the sports field. That was my job. And I was, 30-something. The the Hebrides would have been ideal for me. Mountains, the ranges, it would have been. But no, Lark Hill. I had a lot of fun there. In fact, there was a troop sergeant major of the Gun Park Troop was ex-commando. One of the warrant officers, one of the WOs won. We're all the same vintage, Martin John, Lou Costello and myself. And we played the school RSM with Bob Miller and then Brian Armitage. Bob Miller came, I don't know where Bob Miller went, but Brian and I are still on Facebook together. He was wounded in the Falklands. We had a great time. I really had a great time. Anyway, Lou Costello, I thought, I know a lot about people. I don't know about a civilian job. So I went back to college when I left the army. We lived at home for 6 months. Then I got married and emigrated and got a job with Crane Canada making toilets. And I thought, there's nothing wrong with this place. But a couple of good bombardiers and half a dozen good gunners couldn't put right. And that's the way I looked at life. It was a fact. It was a fact. The supervision, some of the supervisors were good. I mean, but they were civilians. A lot of them had been wartime. One of the guys had been in the PPC. A lot had been a Van Du in Korea, and Joe Chabot. But Joe had gone completely the other way. It was a strange setup. But I thought that. I really did think that. There's nothing wrong with this company. That a good soldier's mess wouldn't look right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought I've seen some firms that I think you could do with a bit more, let's say, discipline, but you've got to be careful the way you talk to people, as I found.
Yes. Well, I'd say I've gone past that stage now. I don't care. When I was, I retired. So I got probably another 10 years of my life, hopefully longer. My mother lived till she was 98, before her 99th birthday. My wife's just come in now.
I gathered that. I can work it out. Do you have any more outstanding memories that you'd like to share before we actually finish?
No, I don't really, Andrew. I think all the things I thought about, I've talked about. Absolutely, the people. I think I hope I've made an impression on some of the soldiers that I've soldiered with, like some of the people I've talked about, like Dickie Bird, Tony Hunter-Choate. They made an impression on me, and I hope I've made an impression on some of the people. In fact, it's rather strange that my Facebook friends, most of the military people in 3rd, are Jay from Hong Kong and Germany. There's not many of us left now that were in Aden. Where most of them are, either died or retired. But it's really amazing and I can see why people from the war went to the legions, because that was the other thing that struck me when I came back from Aden. And I think it's something that people don't realize, that the world has gone on for both sets of people. I'd been away for 3 years. I came back. My mother was glad I was home. Then it was into everyday work. My sisters were, both of them were glad to see me. They were worried about school. And I guess I was sort of I was still tied up in Aden. Nobody wanted to hear about the story. That's where I shut myself off. And in fact, I finished up. I was given 6 weeks. Disembarkation leave. I went back to camp because I couldn't stand it. I was sleeping on the floor. The bed was too comfortable for me. But my mother didn't care. My stepfather obviously didn't. Oh, that was the other thing. My stepfather didn't give a damn. In fact, I came back. I beat him at darts. That was something I remember that very distinctly. That was something that was great. And maybe when he died about 10, 15 years ago. We become good friends, but we weren't initially, no. Yeah, enough said on that one. Yeah, he didn't appreciate me and I didn't appreciate him, I don't think. And I can see now that I made mistakes. I made big mistakes with my life, but I learned from them and I hope I don't make them anymore. I don't think I do. No, it's part of life's rich tapestry. That's the reason I sort of when I saw your ad, I thought, this is interesting because nobody's I wish I was in Vancouver now because I could send you a copy of the book that Richard Mountford wrote. There's a guy who's dead now, was in Dean Keith Reeve.
Yes,
And Keith
I
was.
spoke to Keith last year and the year before. We'd had some
Probably the
discussion.
year before. He's been dead about a year
Sorry, yeah,
now.
my timelines are all over the place. When I was with Deepak in Iraq in 2003, I made a video of our time there, and Keith picked it up a few years back, and we had some conversations on Facebook over it because he was well into his videography and photography and stuff like that as well. Yeah, I had some conversations with Keith, so I know who you're talking about. And he seemed
Yeah,
a really genuinely nice bloke.
he was a first class man. He was. We didn't see how we didn't. He was very quiet in Kenya, and of course he went to Aden then with a lot of my friends. That we didn't really. We met on Facebook again. About yeah. I started going to Facebook. Well, I retired from Canadian Forces, I guess. Keith and I became good friends, and of course I don't come back to Britain that often anymore. The last time I was back was 2017. In fact, I came back for the reunion. Was it the place in Dudley? What was it called?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean that's moved now to Newcastle. They're doing it in Newcastle now.
Yes.
Which I don't mind. It's close to me.
Yeah, I thought that your Yorkshire accent. Yeah.
Right, I think we'll wrap it up there then, John. It's been brilliant talking to you and listening to your stories.
Well, I hope it's been helpful. I hope so. My wife says I talk too much, but I don't listen enough. But I hope I've said enough to make.
No. You're okay. You're okay. I thought it was you talking and him talking. It's you just talking, so that's fine. Don't listen to me. No, keep talking. I'm glad you make him talk. I'm glad you make him talk because I can't. I told him to write a book, and I said just tell stories. No. So I'm so glad you're making him talk. So keep chatting, and I'm not here.
That's you, Tom. Something I've discovered already with doing this, and I say I've only been doing it a few weeks, is that the stories in all of us, it's a way to get them out as well, to let other people know. I mean, there'll be a record of this conversation for forever how long it's on the internet. Once it's on the internet, it's there. And it is good. I mean, when going back to the conversation I had with Keith, was about the video that I'd made, YouTube, years and years, 10, 15 years ago. And people are still watching it now. And it's mainly just, maybe it's people from the regiment or whatever, I don't know. But people are still, it still gets views now about it. I'll have to send you a link to it so you can. But it is good to talk. The people I've spoken to up to now doing this podcast, they've all said the same thing. It's good to share the stories and get them out there because it's a bit cathartic as well. It makes people feel, it makes yourself feel better to talk about things that normally you wouldn't talk to, and talking to someone who understands what you're saying as well.
Exactly.
No, I was just saying it's been good talking, and it's good for people to actually get their own stories out. It helps with people's mental health and stuff like that as well, because generally we don't talk to people about our service. I mean, I was in for 27 years, and I'll tell stories to the guys at work about stuff that happened, and it normally involves beer along the point, along that line somewhere. Every good story started off, so we go for a beer, and it's a lot of them are like that. But the stories, places like Bosnia and Iraq and things like that. What you were saying earlier about when you came back from Aden, the rest of the world had carried on, and they were interested in what had been happening over there. And I found exactly the same thing when we come back from tours of, say, Iraq or Northern Ireland or Bosnia. People at home weren't really bothered. They didn't want to know what you were doing. It was kind of, you know, it's beyond our eyesight. It's beyond our view, and we don't really want to know about it.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the guys from the First World War, the Second World War, and every conflict we've ever been involved. When they've come back from that, they'll have probably experienced exactly the same thing. So you haven't got anyone to talk to unless it's
But
another guy who's in the military.
Well, it's funny you should say that. One of the things I thought about, my grandparents kept a pub, and I was born in a pub. And the people using the pub, the men, were the age that had been in the war. Then my aunt and uncle kept a pub in Malvern, Royal Oak, and I used to go over there because I used to like the pub. But I was always, and it's funny, I came back from Aden, I was what, 21, 22. The kids I'd gone to school with, in fact, the sweetheart I was left school with, they didn't interest me anymore. I wanted to talk in the pub with the old guys. And they were interested in me because they'd been in the war. There was one, Charlie Smith, that was a War Department policeman. He'd been RSM of the Worcesters during the Second World War. And he became like a grandfather to me. My grandfather was dead. He became like a grandfather to me because he could relate to what I was talking about as a young guy. My uncle, being in the Second World War, he could relate to what I was talking about. My aunt, who was in the Air Force, for God's sake, she got a mention in dispatches in the Air Force. She was involved, she was doing some spooky work with the radars. I remember TRE in Malvern was the big thing. TRE, Technical Research Establishment, the Royal Radar Development Establishment. And she would come through on her train, and I caught her one day in the kitchen. She was cleaning her pistol. Now here's this dishy young woman. I was what, 3, 2? I can remember it vividly. She was sitting at the kitchen table cleaning her pistol. And I thought, I didn't know it was a pistol then, but she was cleaning it. I know it was a pistol now. It was a 38, but that was her job. I mean, that was the thing. You know, you talk to these young girls now, and she was what, probably 22, 23, 24. Talk to 24-year-olds now. I don't know. It doesn't seem the same. You know, I think we're different world we live in. Different world. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right, John. I'm coming up to the time that I've allocated for us on here now, because I only get sent so long on this software, and it cuts me off basically.
My time on my phone is going down too. There started off as 100%, and it's gone down now. It's 30 something.
Right,
33.
Better get that on charge then. Right, I just want to close off by saying thanks for talking. Thanks for volunteering for this.
No problem.
It's been brilliant. I really, really appreciate it. And when I get this out,
No
I'll
problem.
post a link on Facebook for it and stuff like that. And I'd imagine some of the guys out of the Red Side for the PPMA are going to love to hear this. They're going to remember names that have been mentioned and stuff like that. You know, it's been great.
Okay, I'm glad I've been able to put input, Andrew. That's the main thing. You know, I'm glad I have, because it's important. As soon as I read your opening email on Facebook, I thought, oh, I've got to do this. Because my wife, she said, has been banging on to me for, you know, she mentioned me with Storytel, and I'm not interested in that. You know, I'm only interested in talking to veterans who know. That's the thing.
You'd be surprised, though. I mean, if you've got a book in you, get it out.
No.
Some things are better left not said, eh?
But if you don't, let me know. We're here now to early March. And I'll send you a copy of the book that Richard Mountford wrote. I say it's very much officers' material, but it gives a lot of the stories about Aden. You know, there's some stories in there that are funny and some that are not. But it tells you the story of basically, it gives you a big picture of the battery. And the only thing I will say, Nellie Brembridge, the lieutenant that won the Military Cross, he says I was medevac through smoke from drinking Tiger. It's wrong. It is very wrong. And Keith Reeve put that right in his book he wrote about J Battery and Aden. It was lack of water. We weren't allowed Tiger up country. But Nelly screwed up. He screwed up lots of things. So, but anyway, that's the story.
I'll look out for it. Right, like I said, It's been great talking to you. I'm going to end it now.
No problem. No problem.
Well, thanks for listening to the podcast. It was great getting to speak to John today. During our conversation, we spoke about a guy called Keith Reeve, who knew John well. John mentioned that Keith had done a write-up about Aden before he passed away. I'll put a link in the show notes for this. I had a read of it and it's very interesting. Thanks again to John for giving up his time while he was on holiday in Mexico. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please share. Thank you. Bye-bye now.